All right, so I got Way Cool Jr. in the shop again. I swapped out the transmission again last week, or a couple weeks ago actually. And here's the old transmission. I swapped this one in last year, and it ran great for a couple months. But look at this. It quit pulling. I was driving back home from someplace and went to shift from second to third, and it didn't want to catch. It had trouble, and I was on a hill, and I had to make it up the hill. Yeah, it was slipping, and it burned up the transmission. And this is the one I spent $700 on parts on to build it how I wanted. It's gonna be a nice, sweet transmission for this truck, and it's toast. And you can see the fluid there is pretty dark. It doesn't look too bad if it's just dripping out in a thin layer, but once you get the sediment with it, and you get a full layer of the oil, yeah, it's bad. So I need to talk a bit about TV cables, because I got some bad advice on the TV cable on this one when I set it up. And there are guys on the internet, internet experts who will tell you, the TV cable's finicky, but so long as it shifts from first to second at 10 to 15 miles an hour and shifts from second to third at 20 to 25, you're fine. They're lying to you. This transmission shifted fine, but honestly, if you want to set up a TV cable correctly, you need to do a pressure check on this port. Now, what is a TV cable? So, over here on this side of the transmission, you've got your fill tube comes in here, but back here you've got this little doohickey, and it's spring-loaded, and your TV cable connects to it. If you look right here, that little spring-loaded assembly there, you can see that plunger there, and how it moves whenever you work this. This is your TV plunger. You have a plunger and a sleeve assembly in here, and that's what your TV cable controls. So a quick explanation of what a TV cable is: the front of your transmission is a pump. It's a hydraulic pump. It sucks the fluid up from here, right here. It sucks it up into the pump, and it pressurizes it. When it's done pressurizing, you have line pressure. Line pressure is the pressure which everything in the transmission operates off of. So the line pressure feeds through the valve body. I believe it comes in back here, but your plunger here is what makes your TV cable pressure. So whenever you mash on the gas pedal, it pulls on that and pushes that plunger up, and that raises your TV pressure. The heavier your throttle application is, the more TV pressure you have. Now let me make sure I have that right. Let's come over here. So here's part of my problem. Let me grab a rag here, wipe off my hands. Here's the problem with the TV cable in this truck. This is not a Chevy TBI. This is a Holley Sniper. So whenever I go to adapt the TV cable onto this, the angle on this may not be right. And I did some work to try to get it set up right, and I thought I had it right, and that, the transmission lasted for a while. Usually, if you have your TV cable dead wrong, you'll burn up the transmission in less than a mile. You've got to get the TV cable right. So after the fact, I discovered Sonnax makes a kit with this little bracket here that you can put on your Holley carburetor. If I can get it flipped over to where you can see it. It's got the little nub for the TV cable, and it moves it from here to back a little bit further, and that corrects the geometry of your TV cable on a Holley carb. Will it work on a Sniper? I'm going to find out, I guess. But you need that to fix it. The other part I have here, this is a new plunger and sleeve. So I got this new transmission in, new to me. It's a kind of a hack rebuild. I paid $300 for a guy to put seals in it. When I went to check the pressure at the transmission, make sure that my pressure was rising like it was supposed to whenever I gave it gas, it wasn't going up far enough. I was getting a max of 120 PSI. I should be around 300. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get the pressure up. And that tells me that more than likely, this sleeve and plunger is worn out in that transmission. The transmission that's behind this engine right now is the original transmission out of this truck, and it had just been basically just somebody went through it real quick and slapped together for me. I also did not replace that on this transmission because I didn't know about it. I didn't know that was something you should replace on the 700 R4 when you rebuild them. And apparently that's pretty common. So anyways, back to your TV cable and your TV pressure. So whenever you mash on the gas pedal, it pulls this and it pulls this cable out. So yeah, I did have that correct. Pulls that cable out, which pulls on this and pushes that plunger right there. If I can get it showing in the shot, it pushes that plunger up higher. That raises your TV pressure. Now, you also have a governor back here. If you pop this cap off, there's a little spinny thing that goes onto the tail housing, and it's got little centrifugal weights, and as it goes faster, those weights come out, and it pushes on the center of that little valve in there, that little governor, and that raises your governor pressure. So the way the transmission works is that when you're accelerating, the governor pressure gets higher and higher and higher, and it's telling the transmission, I need to shift, I need to shift, I need to shift. It's counterbalanced with your TV pressure, which says, I've got harder throttle application, I can't shift yet. So your TV cable is telling, if you're going light on the throttle and your governor pressure comes up, the transmission shifts. If the governor pressure comes up, but it can't overcome the TV cable pressure because you're romping on the gas, then the transmission will hang a little bit longer before it shifts. And that's why your TV cable adjustment controls where your transmission shifts. Now, if you want to change your transmission shifting, you don't do it by messing with the TV cable. There's other ways to change how it shifts. TV cable is just crucial. And you can't tweak it effectively to change your shift points. You want to make other modifications. If you get it wrong, this is what you get. So that's a quick rundown on how the TV cable works. Now, what I'm going to have to do on this transmission in the truck right now is I'm going to have to come into the valve body here. I have to pop the filter off. And then I can pull out this plunger. I'm not sure quite how to. I haven't done this yet. That's why I got this transmission sitting up here. I believe I take this bracket off here, and that comes out of the way, then I pull that plunger out, and then I pull the spring and the sleeve out, replace them, and that should fix the line pressure on this truck and the TV cable pressure. And then I should be able to tap my pressure gauge. So here's my pressure gauge. I had a really nice old gauge, and I dropped it the other day, broke it. This is Harbor Freight's Maddox gauge. It's not bad. It's actually a better quality gauge than what was in here. It's just, it's 20 years newer, so the new stuff is even better. But you can see I plumbed both these hoses together to give me plenty of reach so that I could drive down the road with this plugged in. And I have it up over the frame rail because the exhaust is right here. And it's going into the side of the transmission. Oh, I can't see on the camera. Yeah. So you can see it comes across there. And there's not enough light to see, but it plugs into the side of the transmission. And I drove around the neighborhood with it hooked up, and the transmission was shifting good. Like all the internet experts say, if you have this kind of shifting, you're all right. Oh, no. I drove around, it was shifting fine, but the pressure is not coming up, so I want to fix that. I don't want to have to go into this transmission again. And I've decided, honestly, the 4L60 is not a truck transmission. It's a light-duty transmission. If you have a 3,500-pound truck and you've got a V6, it's enough transmission. If you've got a 4,500-pound truck and you've got 400 horsepower and you do some towing, you're going to trash this transmission in a hurry. And that's kind of the situation I'm in. This engine is probably near 400 horse. I'm not going to say that it's over 400. It should be, but I'm not going to swear that it is because, I built it. I know how to be honest with myself and understand that things don't always turn out like you want. But the torque is definitely there. This engine pulls like it'll pull stumps. So between that and doing some light duty towing, hauling stuff to the scrapyard and whatnot, I need a transmission that'll hold up. And I'm really pretty close to. If this transmission, if this little fix doesn't work, it's coming out. And I'm gonna punch those holes in the firewall right there, and I'm gonna put a clutch master cylinder there. I've got a pedal kit. I've got an NV3500 sitting in the wings, and an NV3500 is a light duty transmission too, but it's a manual. I don't have to screw around with TV cables. So hopefully this works. Here's with everything off. Your TV cable linkage, you take these two big long bolts out of the valve body here, and this comes off. If you notice, this has a little tab here on it, and that holds your little pin in. I've already pulled the pin out. I've already pulled the linkage here out and the bolts. If I can set this down where it doesn't fall over. All right. So here's this little pin. I just got some vice grips and pulled it straight out. And once you pull that out, I've had this out already and looked at it, and then I realized I should probably shoot some video. So here's your sleeve, your plunger, and your spring. These are the three parts that your TV cable works. This is just a machine chunk of aluminum. It's very flimsy. It's very sketchy. Your plunger's steel, but I can feel I've got a little bit of play here. And I'm wondering if that's normal or not, but that's, so when the plunger goes in, it goes in that way, it comes out the bottom, the spring sits on top, and that's what gives you your spring pressure on your TV cable. Whenever you pull on that TV cable and you feel it, you feel that resistance and the springiness, that's where it's coming from right there. So whenever you go to put it back in, you get the spring up in there. You should probably put the spring inside here first, I guess. That's what I did last time. But you got to get it all lined up. There's a little groove here on the side. There we go. The groove's got to line up with that pinhole. But at the same time, this whole thing, you want to make sure that it's not turned 180 or something like that, and you won't be able to get it in. This does not go flush. It goes a little bit shy of flush. You should be able to just shove the pin through with your fingers. I got it too far. It is fidgety. Oh, there it goes. I felt it start to spline in. Got my little tiny hammer here. And I'm just giving light taps. You see it's going in. And then it bottomed out. So that's how you put that in. So let's pull open the Sonnax kit. And see how tight that one fits together. So, oh, that is, I can still wiggle a little bit, but it is nowhere near as loose as that one was. And this is the transmission that shifted all right, up until it didn't. And I never did check the line, the pressure from that pressure port on this one, the line pressure port. So I'll need to, whenever I pull out the one out of Way Cool Jr. here, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna check the plunger and see how wore out it is. And if it's not anywhere near that tight, if it's looser, then I'll know where my problem was. So make sure and get this back the way it's supposed to be. There we go. I'm gonna put it back in the bag until I use it. Now, one of the better bits of info that I did see out there on the internet was Performabuilt Transmission talked about TV cables and how terrible they really are and how most people get them wrong. And in his video, he showed that whenever you have your transmission in your car, TV cable hooked up, you can take the valve pan, or you can take the filter off and you can look, oops, sorry, try not to bump the camera here. And you can see the lever here, how it hits that plunger and moves it. If the plunger has to move, if you have to move the cable to hit the plunger, you're too loose. You'll burn up your transmission. You don't want it under tension already. If you take the cable loose and it lets the plunger go, then you know that you've got it too tight. You want it to be resting against the plunger without putting any force on it. Even that little bit there, he said, is too much. You want it to meet it and not push on it. And that's how you know that you have it right. But then also, if you've done anything with the geometry, you have to go through the full motion and make sure that it goes all the way, I don't remember what I need to watch this video again, but basically there's an endpoint there that you want to check. And you want to make sure that it starts off flush and goes all the way through the full range of motion. And I'm going to do that on that truck before I do the pressure test. Once I get this plunger replaced and make sure that the geometry is good, that's my next step. And I've got that geometry corrector also that, I'm going to try it without it and see if I did get the geometry correct. And if I didn't, then I'll need to install that. But if my geometry is not correct, and if I can't correct it with the adapters, at that point I'm done. I'm fed up with TV cables. TV cables just flat out suck unless you're dealing with bone stock. If you have a stock intake with the stock throttle body and the stock transmission, a TV cable works. Anything beyond that, they're junk. It's just so fiddly. And there are guys out there who can make them work. Hey, more power to you. I think there's a whole lot more people out there that are burning up their transmissions and not admitting it. I'll show you my mistakes. I don't have a problem with that. This is a hard hobby. Get used to failure. Get used to learning experiences that really suck. All right, so I just got the old plunger out. An interesting thing here, there's a washer that was stuck on top of the plunger. So whoever did the couple $100 rebuild on this transmission did that to boost the throttle pressure a little bit. That's a get down the road fix, but it's not a solid fix. It's not a good fix, But of course, I didn't pay $2,000 for the rebuild. I paid a couple $100, so that's what I expect. And, I'm not disappointed in it. I'm just got to fix it before I get further. If I paid $2,000 and found that, I'd be pissed. This kit here is about 40 bucks. It has the new plunger and everything. And I did check, and hang on a second, let's see if I can get a mount here. All right, got my camera mount so I don't have to freehand this. Or I can have free hands while I do this. So, the old plunger has fairly significant play in it. It's not terrible, but it's not good. The new one's a lot tighter. I can just get a little bit of play out of it, and just trying to get it in there, it's a whole lot smoother fit. I'm trying not to get this all dirty and gummed up, and here I am. Transmissions are very finicky. I'm kind of taking a chance doing this here on the floor. I need to just quit messing around with this and get this in before I get it contaminated. So there's my groove I got to line up. I got to make sure and put that on the correct side. So whenever this goes in, I'll be looking up at it. No, I'm doing that backwards. There we go, it goes in that way. So I'll be looking up at it. I want to see this on my side of the transmission. And here's my new spring. You definitely want to change out the spring. This one's got 100,000 miles on it or whatever of throttle application. That spring's been compressed and decompressed. This one's nice and snug, and it'll give me the right resistance to my throttle. So, time to get this in there. All right, so one more quick tip here. I was putting the TV cable back into Way Cool Jr. just a minute ago, and the TV cable comes down here and hooks onto this, and you're doing it all blind. You can't see what you're doing. You got to get the little piece parallel to hook onto here. Once you get it hooked on, slide that cable down, and the nose of the cable will keep this from coming out of your TV cable. But there's a gasket. There's a little rubber grommet on the end of your cable that goes into here. You have to take that grommet off of the cable and put it onto the case, and then install the case down into it. If you try installing the cable with the grommet on it into here, it just won't go. It won't. You'll end up with the grommet will try to bunch up, and the cable will flex upward like this, and you won't get correct TV cable action. You have to take that grommet off and stick it in here, and it's a royal pain getting it. Especially if it's old and swollen, it won't want to go in. But once you get that in place, you can then bring the cable down, and it'll go in. And it doesn't go in easy, but it goes in a whole lot easier than that other way. I forgot about that, and it'll take you 15 minutes past forever to get it crammed in there wrong. And your TV cable won't work right. So take that grommet off, stick it in that hole, and then put your cable end down into it and tighten it up. All right, so I'm up under the truck now, and I've got my TV cable installed, and if I pull backwards against the throttle, you can see it's already got pressure on that plunger there, and I can't back it off enough to where it doesn't touch, so I'm significantly tight up top. If I mash the bottom, you can see how the cable will mash it that way, but I don't have any gap there at all. Even with this pulled back, you can still hear it hit. So I've got to go up top and loosen that up and then see where I'm at. And then I need to get my wife out here and have her mash the gas pedal. Actually, I got a stick I can put on the gas pedal, but I need to make sure that whenever I mash the gas pedal, it goes all the way flat. So let me loosen this up. All right, so I just went up top and I loosened it significantly, more than I thought I should have. But what I'm seeing now is I'm actually right at the right adjustment. I could probably go a notch looser, but you can see there's no gap there at all. If I tap that, you can hear it hit. And if I loosen it up, you can see the plunger move out. But if I push on it significantly, it quits moving out. So I need to go one notch looser on that. All right, so it is just resting up against it. I can get the plunger to work sometimes and sometimes not. I mean, if I wiggle this, it's not on the plunger at all. So I don't want to go any looser than that. If you have it too loose, you burn up your transmission. A little bit of a gap is too much of a gap. There's no gap there. It's just got a slight bit of pressure on that, and that's acceptable. If you get it too tight to where it's pushing in a little bit, just that much there, just a little bit will give you a harsh shift. So I'm not going to mess with it from there. I think that's good. Now I got to check. I got to put something on the gas pedal and fully floor it and see where this plunger ends up. It should be all the way depressed. So I bought this tool years ago when I was a technician for work on alignments. Ostensibly, it's for holding the steering wheel while you're doing an alignment, but you can also just put it to here and have it hold your gas pedal for you. Throttle plates look like they're all the way open. That TV cable looks like it's pulled out about as far as it'll go. Please, 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 be good. And the TV cable can go further. You see that there? I do not have good geometry, so I do have to fix. I do need to use that Holley cable corrector. Okay, here's one of my issues. This is the Holley throttle extension arm for the Holley Sniper. If you're running one of these, if you're running a Holley Sniper on a small block Chevy, you've got to have this. It corrects your throttle angle. Without this, your pivot point is much lower. It pulls harder on the. It'll try to pull your throttle plate too far. Your off the line throttle tip-in is horrendous. It just tries to blow the tires off at every stop. Sounds cool, except when you're trying to drive all day. You just have to feather the throttle to keep from blowing the tires off, and it's not fun. And then you can also bend the throttle arm here, the throttle shaft, because it is overextending. It's trying to overextend this arm. So $16. I think Summit makes a version that's a little bit cheaper than Holley's. Get the Summit version. I think it's really kind of crappy that Holley does not include this in the kit with the Sniper, knowing that most of the vehicles it's going to go on are Chevys. But so I've got to get this plate under the Sonnax plate. So yeah, I've got to get both of these on here now. And that doesn't quite line up. Am I going to have to put a washer in there or what? I don't know. It does come with hardware for this end, so more than likely I'm just going to put this here and put a washer up here. I think that'll fix that. Alternatively, I could mount it this way, but then that's going to be hitting it'll be blocking the TV cable arm. Is that in view? That's in view. Okay, good. So now I've got to go through my washer bin and find You can see where that's already bent a little bit, so I may have had my throttle misaligned at some point. But I'm going to go find a washer or a couple of washers that I can stick in there and space that out with. Alright, so I got my hardware here. These are my 2 throttle additions I have to do to the Holley Sniper to hook it up to a small block Chevy with a 700R4. You notice I had to add a couple of washers here and actually mash that down a little bit so it fits straight on these washers. So I'm going to put a nut here. This hole here seems like it's kind of loose. I think I'm pretty much going to have to put this bracket on first and then feed all the rest of this hardware through to put the nuts on the back side. That'll give me my throttle cable, that'll give me my TV cable. Now the Sonnax kit comes with these 2 little doodads. If you buy them separately, I think it's like 10 bucks or so. It's a kit that you can put on to a TV cable to help take up some of the slack or something. I don't know. It's kind of goofy, but apparently they work. Sonnax recommends it. So the problem is it's going to take up some of the adjustment here. But you slide this spring in place and you put this little cap over it, over the cable. And when the spring comes back, it'll keep the little cap from coming off. And it basically goes on the end of your spring here to give you a little bit more play, so you don't bend things. And so that should be all there is to it. Now, if you see my geometry is off a little bit, this is a Summit Racing throttle bracket adapter. It's been worked to fit, and I don't like how it fits. I haven't ordered the Sonnax piece, though. I've re-welded this a couple times. I think it'll fit. I've just got to bend this tab like that a little bit so the TV cable's pointing to right about here, and I need it to point out to here. So I've got to bend that tab a little bit. Sonnax makes a bracket that bolts to a Holley carburetor, and with this arm, the whole thing is supposed to just work. The bracket's 50 bucks. This bracket from Summit is like 15, 20, but it's, you know, if it blows your transmission, then it's not worth it. So I'm going to take this off. There's 1 bolt back here holding it on. I'm going to tweak that a little bit to get that aligned a little bit better, and then I'm going to take my measurements underneath to make sure it all works like it's supposed to. Alright, just looking at it, the angle on the TV cable looks so much better now. So, let's see what we get. Alright, so got this on here again. I've got to loosen up quite a bit. You can see it's significantly plunging it. Okay, I loosened it up about 3 clicks. And it looks like, you can see it just barely pushes on it. Just barely touches it. So, I think that's good. Now to check full throttle. All right. And it's still not right. I'll go at top check. Well, I pulled it all the way open down there on the transmission, and the throttle valve is now tight up here. This is all tight. It seems like at wide open throttle, it is right. I'm guessing I just didn't quite have it wide open throttle on the gas pedal inside the truck. I didn't check out here before I adjusted it. So, Okay. All right. Well, that looks good to me. I am going to button up the pan, put fluid back in it, and test drive it. And if it all drives good, I'm going to finish welding that bracket, the throttle cable bracket. If you're starting from scratch and you're installing a Holley Sniper, I recommend that first off, you replace that sleeve in your transmission. If you've got an old transmission that you're just going to throw in it, or if it's a new transmission, replace that, because throttle valve pressure matters that much. Buy this bracket here. You can see it's got the corrector. Buy your Holley throttle arm extender here that you have to get the throttle cable to keep from over pulling your sniper. And then I would also buy the Sonnax bracket instead of this. This one has taken me so long to set up, and it's got the factory geometry on it as close as I could get, because the factory bracket wouldn't fit because this is running a Vortec manifold. If you have a TBI manifold, no, you can't, because the throttle body injection system sits further back. The Holley moves forward. So you really have to buy, I would recommend that $50 Sonnax bracket. It sucks. That's stupid. But, you know, you're dealing with a TV cable system. The 4L60Es do not have a TV cable because you have a throttle position sensor and the computer controls that pressure. But that's also why, if you're going to run a 4L60E, you have to buy that $300 transmission controller. So either way, you're going to be spending money and adapting stuff that wasn't meant to work with it. It's a pain in the butt, but that's what it is. So, yeah, I'm going to see if I can finish this up. All right, so I just took the truck for the test drive, having a pressure gauge. So there's a chart here. This is from, I think it's from B&M. Yeah, B&M Transmissions. It's their installation instructions. It has a pressure chart for what your pressure should be. You power brake it and check to see what your pressures are, and they should match up with this. And they matched up pretty good. So I'm within spec. The truck drove all right. The Sniper's had a little bit of trouble. It's been a long time since I drove it, and it sputtered on me a little bit. And I've done some work on it since then, so I think it's having to relearn a little bit. But I'm going to drive this for the next week, and hopefully this has got it fixed once and for all. 700R4s and TV cables stink on ice. They're the devil, Bobby Boucher. So keep that in mind. I think I've hopefully given you enough tips. If you have one of these, maybe you can get yours running good without burning up your transmission twice, like somebody you know. So thanks for watching.